Hey, Breaking Brown family. Hey, Your Black World family. This is Yvette Carnell again. I'm coming to you today to address the pseudo controversy. And I say that because it is a fake controversy around something that Bernie Sanders said last night about black people. And Joyanne Reid of MSNBC, probably the only black person or one of the few black people still left at MSNBC after the purge. During the debate, she tweeted in response to something that Bernie Sanders said about black people or white people not having the experience of having lived in the ghetto. And she tweeted something to the effect of, well, not all people live in the ghetto. And this is part of the misunderstanding of Bernie Sanders and why Bernie Sanders doesn't understand black people. The poverty rate in the black community is 28% or whatever. And although that's abysmal, that goes to show that not all black people live in the ghetto. And I just want to say that that's just ridiculous. I mean, if you look at it, just look at what she says, right? The poverty rate is for a family of four is right around a little over $20,000. Okay. So even if you don't fall within that rate of being the 28% or however much who are in that category of poverty, you're still poor. Because even if you own 30 or 35,000, even if that's what you earn, you're still poor. That's still not enough to support a family of four. So just because you aren't technically included in the poverty rate doesn't mean that you're not a poor person. It doesn't mean that you're not a member of the working poor. It doesn't mean you're not living from check to check. And that is poverty. That is economic insecurity. So when it wasn't just Joy Reid, you had people like Jonathan Capehart kind of chime in here and say, well, Bernie Sanders doesn't really know how to talk to black people. Well, Jonathan Capehart is the same person who went in on black people for not knowing anything about Africa and enjoying Kwanzaa. So I don't know what Jonathan Capehart has to add here about having a conversation with black people. But let's just for all intents and purposes, let's just kind of get back to the numbers, right? So if you think about it, the middle number in terms of the average, in terms of the black family, when you look at that middle number, that middle black family probably has about $1,700 in the bank. Think about it. $1,700 in the bank means you're poor. You can't withstand any kind of upheaval. You can't lose a job. You can't do anything. That is economic insecurity. There was another study that showed that the average single black woman has $100 in her bank account, as opposed to has access to $100 in savings, as opposed to $40,000 for a white woman. You are poor. So this whole conversation that we're not poor because we have access to restaurants, so because we can eat at the same places beside white people. We can go out to eat at Ruby Tuesday, and there's a white family, and so I'm here and I'm a black person, so I'm not poor. I'm not poor because I'm doing what these other people do. And that is sort of something that has allowed us to not understand that we're poor people, because we get to do things that non-poor people do. So we don't really understand the level of, I don't know how to really, I'm trying to figure out a way to really phrase it, but we don't really understand the level of our economic, insecurity. And it's really unfair to kind of pigeonhole Bernie Sanders anyway, because honestly, when he was talking just about class and not race, black people were like, oh, why are you gonna talk about race? He left race alone. You had Ta-Nehisi Coates and everybody come out and say he just talk about race. The minute he tries to talk about race, you say, oh, look, he don't know how to talk about race. No, he's telling you the truth. He's telling you the truth that you're poor. White people have all sorts of structures that they can tap into for when they have problems. They may know somebody who works in the HR department. It's not always the case, but they may have some inheritance. Granny may have left them some money. At least you hear people say, I have money that I have this amount of money that my granddad or grandmama left me, or they left me a house and all this other stuff. I don't hear a lot of black people say that kind of thing because we don't have anything. We don't have anything to fall back on. And let me just say this. The way you can really draw this home is you can look. When Joy Reid talks about we're not poor, well, Joy Reid, why don't you tell that to Melissa HarrisPerry, who was your colleague until recently? And Melissa HarrisPerry said when the reason she got so upset when she thought she was being when she thought MSNBC was about to let her go, part of the reason she got so upset was because she believed, or she said this in an interview, that she takes care of her whole family. That's what she said. I take care of my whole family. So now Melissa HarrisPerry, who was your colleague at MSNBC is telling you, I'm afraid that I'm about to fall back into poverty, or the people who are around me are going to go without because I lost my job. Because as a black person, the minute you lose your job, even if you're doing good, you're surrounded by poor people. So what happens is you always have to take care of those people. White people don't have that situation. They're not rich worrying about, Pookie got locked up and John got to go to school and all these other responsibilities. So even now, even though she's been making a good six-figure salary, Melissa Harris-Perry, she herself is worried about sliding back into poverty. That's how far removed you are from poverty. And most people aren't Melissa Harris-Perry. Most people aren't making six-figure jobs. Most black people are the working poor. And if you listen to the thing that really bothers me is that listening to Joy-Ann Reid really kind of takes you out of that mind frame of who you are. No, understand who you are. Understand that as a black woman, single black woman, you probably have $100 in savings. As a middle family, you have $1,700 probably. That's no money. That's no money. And you don't have anything. White people can tap into their whiteness. There was a study a while back that showed that a white person who hadn't graduated, from high school had just as much or better shot of getting a call back at a job interview than a black person who has a college education. That's what you call tapping into your whiteness. Now, we can't quantify that. We can't quantify that in any kind of way, but that gives that person a structure that supports them. You don't have that. We don't have that. And so, the idea that Joy Reid is just coming out here and saying, well, we're not poor. Well, yes, you are. Lose your MSNBC job, Joy Reid, and see how not poor you are. If nobody picks you up, see how not poor you are, and see how you don't have the same infrastructure. You don't have the same access to wealth as your white counterparts who might lose a job at a network. That's not what you have. You don't have that safety. We don't have that safety. And to get out there and say that, maybe you feel that way because you're a Harvard grad or whatever, but that even doesn't do it. Just because you went to, going to Harvard isn't the thing. Going to Stanford isn't the thing. Going to Berkeley isn't the thing. Going to Brown isn't the thing. What these people are doing, you're just going there and taking classes. You're not tapping into the wealth of that school. You're not giving money to that school. You don't know the dean at that school. You don't know people that can hook you up at the network at that school. You don't have anything at that school. They just open the door and say, yeah, let the black kid take some classes. And you feel like you're the white kid who's a legacy, who's at Harvard. You feel like you're the white kid who has a dad who just donated $25,000 to the school. You can't tap into Harvard's resources when you fall on hard times, and you know that. So it's a disservice to black people to have people like Joy Reid trying to tell us that we're not poor. We are poor, and we have to own that, because owning that is the first step to doing something about it. So I don't want to hear anything about black people not being poor, because I know that we are poor. And I'm fine to say it, because I know the truth of the matter is that stuff extends all the way back to slavery. And there's just as there's a lot of wealth that came out of slavery, there's a lot of poverty that came out of slavery. And that wealth is still in the system, and that poverty is still in the system. And that's the class. That's what Bernie Sanders was trying to talk about when he was talking about redistribution and equality. But instead, these people are trying to bury him by saying he doesn't know how to talk about black people. No, he knows exactly how to talk about black people. We are poor. And just because you don't live in a ghetto doesn't mean you are not a member of the working poor. I think it's about time black people wake up.